The goal of Safe and Just Alternatives is to work for repeal of the death penalty in Washington state. We believe that the death penalty is wasteful, unfair, and fails to protect public safety. Thank you for joining us today. I'm honored to introduce our first speaker, Senator Debbie Regala, who is the sponsor of SB 6283 to repeal the death penalty. Senator Regala.
Thank you very much, and I thank you all for being here today. I'm pleased to be able to sponsor this bill this year. You know, I think it's very important to recognize that we live in a very dynamic world, and things are always changing, and that includes the importance of looking at public policy. It's really not a static thing. We need to continue to look at it and see if it's accomplishing the goals that we really want and if it's doing it in the best way. And so that's kind of the premise that I began looking at the death penalty. And as you look at the death penalty, we see that we are spending an awful lot of money. The whole purpose, I believe, is to ensure public safety. But we spend an awful lot of money debating whether or not someone should be put to death, and certainly that's a very, very important debate. But the reality is, from my perspective, that when we want to ensure public safety, we can do that by giving someone a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. They are then in prison for the rest of their life. The public is safe. And another aspect of this that I want people to understand is I am not speaking in theory. Excuse me. I am someone who has lost a family member to murder. I know the pain. I understand that. But I think that all of us will agree that what we want first is to have the perpetrator caught and to be incarcerated and to be off the street so it doesn't happen to someone else. Again, that's accomplished by having life without the possibility of parole. Now, we don't have all the fiscal information clearly to us yet as legislators, but we can look back and see that we spend millions and millions of dollars in that very important but lengthy process of trying to decide if someone should be executed or not. That money could be much better spent in more positive ways in lots of other places. So I think those are the issues that I'm going to bring up with my colleagues and have this very important debate about what is good public policy that accomplishes the goal we want of getting people who commit murder off the street and keeping our public safe, and yet being very effective and responsible with the public dollars that we have at our disposal. Thank you.
We should understand that the death penalty, which was sold as a deterrent to future crime, in part, is not. We have a relatively low and declining death rate in our state, murder rate in our state. States that actually have the death penalty, however, generally do not. The death penalty does not deter capital crime.
Nobody can prove that after you execute somebody that somehow you give that family, the murder victim's family, peace. And nobody can argue that, as Senator Klein said, that the streets are made safer for the public or for police officers because we execute people. The only argument that is left for those proponents who want the death penalty is that of revenge. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And we know what Martin Luther King said. So we're going to be a toothless, blind society. Because when do we stop?
We must do whatever we can in any sector, in any corner of this nation to stand up against the death penalty. Not only because of the errors that could be made, but also because we're a society that deserves forgiveness too. And I say that we're a society that deserves forgiveness too because we can't ignore the conditions that so many live under when they commit horrendous acts. Where were we when they were in kindergarten, when they were in first grade, when they were abused by whomever it may have been, when they were locked out, left out of societal opportunities? Where were we then? We hear about 2.4 million. We hear about the allocation of resources to killing someone. And frankly, August 8, 2005 is a day I'll never forget. Why? Because my brother was killed. He was shot down on a corner. And after the pain subsided, after all of the pain, well, it never subsides. But as rationality starts to creep in, I start to think, what about that child? How did that child live? What could we have done differently? How come we weren't there when we were when he was 5, when he was 7, when he was older? How come we didn't have more counselors? How come we didn't have more counseling, health care, and the like? Perhaps it's because we were busy spending $2.4 million per person on killing someone rather than focusing on how they lived. It's time for the death penalty to be abolished in the state of Washington, to follow suit with Oregon, to follow suit with Illinois, and to follow suit with so many other states. But now we're at the place where they recognize that we deserve forgiveness too for our failure to reach out to kids in pain.